Hey, what's happening, SpiderFit family? Brett Klicka here, and I'm excited today. I'm here. You've seen him before. If you followed us, you've seen Coach Brian Monday before. He's one of the coaches that I personally coach, and he never ceases to amaze me. Just his ability to run and just basically do what we talk about. We'll talk about some ideas, and then he just does it. It's a pretty simple equation, but he does it consistently. And I wanted him to share some of the cool things that he did this summer that were slightly different than the model that many of us, including myself, follow for so many years in working with kids. He tried a little bit different model with a lot of success. So I want to share it with you. So thanks a lot, Brian, for taking the time today to share with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me to do this, helping me through this journey, and hopefully everybody that gets to view this and watch this gets a couple nuggets and rolls with it.
Oh, I'm sure they will. If they were on the last time I think we talked about just the growth of your program through the pandemic.
Through the pandemic, yep.
And the different things. And now that growth has gone absolutely exponential as you guys have been able to open back up. But for those of you that don't know, Brian Monday is the founder and director of the Rock Solid Kids program at Athletes Fitness and Performance in Frederick, Maryland. And he's taken this program from zero to where it's at today in a very short period of time. And I wanted to share this with you today because, again, our goal with SpiderFit is to impact and create the impetus, inspire the inspirers, educate the educators so that we can together as a tribe, as a SpiderFit family, impact millions of kids around the world, creating a future of happy, healthy, active young athletes for life. And right now, in the private sector, those of us who operate kids camps, that's something that I did, fitness camps or sports camps is something I did for almost 20 years. We get locked into these ideas. We get locked into these models. And the model I'm talking about today is kind of this 1 hour, this 45-minute or 1 hour model of the strength and conditioning camp, which is great. It works really well. But I always push the coaches that I work with, I always push them to think a little bit differently. How might they be able to better serve their community? Are there needs within their community beyond just, well, here's another place to go for an hour? And I have seen and worked with, and I'm going to bring all the coaches I work with on here to interview the different models that they've been trying and having success with that now gives their business an opportunity to grow. And what that really means is they're getting a greater opportunity to take care of their community, to serve their community while they're able to take care of their families and themselves as well. And that's a win-win, and that's what we all should be shooting for. So Brian, we had talked well before summer. We start that process well before summer, just saying, okay, summer is the time for sports camps in most places. And that's kind of like Black Friday for the youth strength conditioning industry. Our greatest opportunities, parents are actually looking for something for their kids to do. So talk a little bit about what did you do different? What made you do a different model? Really, what was that model?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's really cool about what we did this summer is we broke the norm, went outside of the box of kind of the standard gym fitness summer program for kids. Doing a little market research with you, after I talked to a few parents and getting a few conversations, which I'll go to in a second, we saw that all the programs that were out there promoting some sort of fitness style camp, it was, the YMCA, the FCA, and all those guys, but they weren't an all summer long kind of a thing. So, you have your kids go to the equestrian camps, you have your kids go and do this. And I thought that was so interesting because we've only ever done the model of a 45-minute, 2 times a week, 4 weeks long special kind of summer program. And we had a few parents in our old facility kind of like a little bit of like an outcry, like saying like, we need something different for our kids. We love the fitness components and things that you bring to them. They've been on their electronics for the past 6 months. You guys should really look into doing something like this. So then we connected about it. And obviously it was a huge task. It was 3-4 months of marketing and planning and programming and details. And 6 weeks of execution, but I tell you what, it was incredible. And now we have a whole system, a whole thing created, and we're going to be able to use it for summers to come. But yeah, just getting into conversations with my parents that I had in our doors, and just being like, what more can I do to serve your child? Mm-hmm. And instantly 5 of the like 7 responses that we got, they were like, my kids are tired of going to the summer camp down the road at xdaycare.com, whatever. And they were like, can you please think of something? We were like, heck yeah, let's do it.
Well, and what Brian's really talking about, what they did is they made a day camp. They turned their strength, instead of saying, hey, here's an hour. And how long was each day, Brian?
Yeah. So the parents would sign up week by week. And each day, so Monday through Friday, each day was 4 hours. So from 9 to 1 p.m.
So 9 to 1 p.m. So now as a parent, and these are some of the conversations we had, it sounds like the 1 hour model works great during the school year. Although, we've talked about that you might be doing some things during the school year too, because there's a need in the community for childcare. And how can we combine some degree of childcare with strength and conditioning to accomplish all of our goals? But you realize that the parents were almost saying like, well, if you have a camp at like 10 in the morning, that's great, from 10 to 11, but then that's actually more of an obstacle to my day. That's like a barrier. Like I got to 9:30, got to go get them ready and get them out the door and then drive there. And then I got to figure out something to do while they're there and go home. It's disruptive as to where they can just drop them off, have their day. So what you did is you removed a barrier and you said, hey, it's we can take your kids for the whole day. But this is not something that we've really tackled much in strength and conditioning, because you can't just have kids obviously work out for 4 hours.
4 hours.
I mean, obviously it's not a 4 hour long workout. So what did a day look like? If for those that are here that think this might be a good idea, what did a day look like with the kids? And really cool, what age of kids are we talking about here, Brian?
Yeah, so weeks 1 through 5, our age groups range from 6 to 9, kind of like your standard developmental staged age children. And the reason we changed the 6th week to a little more 9 to 12 is because we had parents like, oh, this would be so cool if I could get my kid out of the house, but they're 10. Are they able to come? And us being like, I don't want them to be with a bunch of 6-year-olds, because then they'll be upset or, egos start to develop. But, so we changed the last week of the camps to be specifically for them, but we still ran the same format. So at the beginning of a day, they would arrive 8:55, 9 o'clock. Everybody likes to be right on time or right after. We had outside free time where they had activities to do, play, balls, footballs, basketballs, you name it. It was out there, jump ropes, all the things, bubble machines. That was probably the best part of the entire thing. But from 9 to 9:30, they had outside activities. And then 9:30, we would come inside. And if it was show and tell, share something, wear your jersey day. So every day had a theme. And that would be a time where we came in and cooled down, obviously, because it was, scorching hot so far this summer. But we would cool down. Everybody would get their waters and chill out. We would, have either a story or a movie, like just 30 minutes of hangout. Then we would go outside and they would participate in a Spider Fit-esque workout. So the whole format from just developmental movements, exploration and games and challenges and teamwork and stuff like that. The bubbles were still going then too. So they really love those. So if you get anything out of this, kids love bubble machines. Amazon, $15. That's all you need.
But isn't it funny though? I mean, to that point, it's a little off the center topic, but it is funny how, like, when you're working with kids, our mind is thinking, okay, we have to teach them this and this and this. And the kids, like, they got a bubble machine. I want to go every day.
Were popping, spinning, doing all these things. They were developing without us even programming it.
That's the thing with kids. And again, I keep saying it. If we want our kids' programs to be successful, we got to sometimes look and see what do kids get excited about. Not so much what do we get excited about, but what do kids get excited about. It's not going to take away from the program. it's not going to be a huge expense, but some of these little silly things that we would never think about in a million years are the
Oh yeah.
selling point of a program. So anyway, so they're outside to do the workout.
Yeah, we're outside, we do the workout. That's about 45 minutes. Then we come inside, wash our hands, obviously, because you got to be sanitary. Everybody's
Yep.
touching everybody. Wash your hands. We get snack time. During snack time, there's some sort of hands-on activity, craft, coloring with, music or a movie on the background, and they're still participating and cooling down again, because obviously we can't have them going for
Yeah.
4 hours and not cooling down, because none of them sweat, and you learn these things in the YPLS certification. So we have snack time, and then obviously we've been blessed with having a separate room in our facility. So the gym there's 3 lanes of turf and all these crazy cool things. So the kids are like, we got to get out there. It's going to be so fun to go out there and run around on the green turf and all these things. And that's my brain before they even came and me programming. So after our snack time, we called it turf time. There were 3 stations of activities involving throwing, catching, kicking, tossing, bear crawls, sled push, sand bells, sit-ups, anything you can think of in a conglomerate of activities at different stations. And a cool little trick there, we separated them by giving them a colored band on their first day. So that was their group, and that made it easier to decipher who's who and where's what and stuff like that. So we would be out on the turf. The turf would last about 45 minutes. So they would go through each station 3 times, 5 minutes at a time. And it was unanimous that turf time was the best time that they had in almost every single group. So we go from turf time back to washing our hands to lunch. And lunch is where they are participating in these cool little crafts that we got at a local shop called AR Workshop. They might not be local to you, but they're local to us. And they gave us these little crafts and things like that. And they're not just like, hey, Johnny, here's a piece of paper, draw your potato family. And it's like, they're painting, they've got stencils, they've got all these cool things, and it comes out and it looks beautiful. And it's like, your mom and dad are going to put that on the shelf and not toss it in the box that my parents, there's a box over here. They have a box of all my drawings and homework and stuff. And it's like, I'll never see it again. But if I have like these clay things that I made or these paintings, and
so
they've got those all over the house.
So they do this cool stuff at lunch. Then what happens after that?
So after lunch, we had a guest reader come in. So lunch is about 30, 35-ish minutes. And we had a guest reader, and this guest would be one of the PFP team members. So they would come in. It's a new face, new voice, new person. And they would actually read the kids book series from John Gordon, talking about the energy bus, the hard hat, the one word for kids, the coffee bean with Damon West, and thank you, good night. And it was just an incredible book series that we read those books, and it's super like in-depth and intellectual. And then they made it a kid's version, and it's absolutely incredible. So if you haven't checked those out, definitely check those things out. But we would go through story time, and then they would go back outside and have free play, free roam, go crazy, have a little bit of fun before pickup at 1 o'clock.
So these kids, I mean, really, they are doing a lot of workouts.
Oh yeah.
But it looks like you separated that out. So it's not like that you only could work out for 45 minutes and then you had to run a daycare for the rest of the time. You're still working out, you're still developing skills. But you just got smart about, well, we can put a craft in here and they need a snack here. And story time's not just reading just whatever the caterpillar that eats
Captain Underpants. Come on, that's the hot one.
Right. But you're reading stuff that really is part of your brand, part of what you're having to do. Now, I know that a lot of coaches are sitting there saying, well, it sounds like Brian's got this great big facility. That's great. But, I don't have that big a facility, or I have a smaller facility. And one thing I can say with that is that one of the challenges, if you're a gym owner or somebody at your gym that has that challenge of that kind of off time, that midday off time, most gyms are looking to do something. I mean,
Yes,
9 o'clock for most gyms still is kind of busy, but kind of like from 10 o'clock to about 2 or 3 o'clock most days, that's difficult. So you're solving a problem that a lot of gyms have. You're bringing a large number of kids in. You're creating this program on times that gyms are a little they're not as busy anyway, and so that gives
Yeah.
you some leverage if you have to talk, if you're not the owner, or if you're an owner and you're afraid, well, I don't want this to disrupt my day. Well, realize that for you that might be a part of your day that's not as busy, so you might have more room, and you might be able to use outside. And one thing, believe it or not, when I first started with Todd Dirk and we did camps, we had less than 1,000 square feet to work with. And we were moving 50, 60 kids through there in an hour. And it was just because we had to. So we figured out ways to do it. So if you're listening to this and saying, nah, he's got a facility, I can't do that. I'm telling you, there's ways that you can try different models. You just have to realize the importance of it and go from there. So Brian, because you've done the 45-minute model, the hour model, and you have that still going with Rock Solid Kids. It's
Yep.
still that. What did you notice? I mean, was it difficult to keep the kids' attention? Or did you find by the end of the day they were just ready to go home because they were over it? Or what did you find about their engagement? What was it any different than the hour? Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. So this kind of falls on planning and preparation, and never really doing it before can seem like an obstacle in a sense. With the experience that I have working with the kids in the Rock Solid Kids Academy, like through the workouts and things like that, and then the experience of having the 45-minute 1 hour camps, I was able to not able to program. The programming took a little bit of time, super detailed, and that was like our preparation. Your recommendation was get every word that you might say, get every detail you might think of onto paper, and now we have a 25-page document that has everything right there. But going towards like attention span for the kids, everything felt, we were like packing things in a sense. Like with the workout, we had a ton of different activities, a ton of different stations. Times were only 5 minutes at a time at each station. So they were moving and moving and moving, changing the parts of their bodies they were using, the parts of their brains they were using. So there wasn't really a time where they were like, I don't know what to do now, Coach Brian, because they were always actively engaged in the things that we were doing. And obviously week one, day one, I was nervous. It was our first time doing anything like that. And I had a great assistant, and we both just put our brains together. And after day one, we had an hour meeting, talked about what we could change, what we could do, what more we could do. And we made it, we made it work. We put it together. And with what was funny is we were expecting the older age group to kind of like lose interest and like fall off to the side because it's games and activities and tag and balloons and things like that. I think out of the 5 weeks or the 6 weeks, that group was the most engaged out of all of them, which was the craziest thing. Is like our brains were like, they're older, they like TikTok, they're not going to care about hitting balloons up in the air and doing bubbles and all these things, and they loved it. So it's like one of those things that I had to experience to understand in my brain, to be like, no, they love all these kids love being kids sometimes. Like I had a few kids that run in my program, in our RSK small group program, and they're like these straightforward, like, just tell me what to do, like, and I'll do it kind of kids. And they came to that week of the summer camp and they were like, I didn't even know who they were, because there was bubbles and lights and they were having so much fun. But as far as like coming back to the attention and like, seeing if the engagement and stuff like that, it really came down to the planning of it and having a plan and not just winging it, because you can't. The kids will notice, even if you don't think they'll notice, but they'll be like, all right, Coach Brian or Coach Sally, like, what are we going to do now? So if you're interested in starting a longer term camp like this, you really got to sit down and focus on what you're going to be doing throughout the whole process. Every day, from day one to the last day, Like you got to know what you're doing, what you're saying, what the rules are, what the expectations are, and just give it to them as well. Because once we noticed, like after the first week, we weren't putting the schedule on the board of the things that we're doing, and they were like, well, what's next? Well, what's next? Well, what's next? What's next? And once we put it on the board and told them beforehand, they were like, okay, we're ready for turf time. Let's do this thing.
Well, it's that communication. Let them know, and it's a system. It's part of the systems, and it's just like, this is what we do. And we had a lot of conversation about this, and it was kind of, remember I was saying it, details, Brian, details, and at first it just said, no, I got this. Like, I'm a strength coach, I can do it. And then you realize the amount of over planning you really need to do your first time. And Brian, that was very labor intensive, right? I mean, that took a lot of time.
It took a lot of time, and I'm not going to lie to anybody. It took probably about 2-3 months like during our marketing phase. Like there was no turning back after we had people signed up for it. So it was like, let's get this thing knocked out. Let's get this thing down. And I have to put a lot of the success of the camp and how it ran to planning and preparation, because without that, we were just running around chickens with our heads cut off. Like, here, what's next? I don't know.
Well, so Brian, you talk about 2 to 3 months to really like, get this format and get all the details in, create your systems that you're going to use. But the next time you run it, how long is it going to take to put that together?
Not too long, huh?
It might take an hour of tweaks, maybe. I mean, you might have the winning formula for the next little bit. So yeah, it is going to take time, folks. It takes a lot of time to put it together, but you had a successful summer. You can now take that playbook and say, okay, I'm going to use this playbook for the fall, and then I'm going to use this playbook for the winter, and then I'm going to use it again for the summer. So now you have a successful playbook because you were willing to create a playbook. And as you went, you said some important things there. You met with your coach afterwards. Okay, what happened with that? Because another mistake we can make is like, I spent 2 months making that playbook, I ain't changing it. Well, you got to change it as new data shows up. You got to change it. So with that, what would you say was the biggest expense? Obviously, is our margins in this industry. Our margins are tight. What was your biggest expense in putting on, instead of doing the 45-minute hour model, all of a sudden you got a 4-hour camp? What was your biggest expense in putting all that together?
Yeah, so they were all pretty equal in a sense. So there's a few things you definitely need: backup snacks and backup lunch food. That was probably the biggest thing that we had to purchase. Other than a few pieces of sports equipment, like it wasn't too crazy. I think we probably spent about $500 or $600, like maybe. And we bought a tent, we bought the balls, we bought a carrier for the balls, we bought all these crafts and things like that. And I mean, that's about it. So it wasn't anything incredible. Walmart has some great value snacks that you can get, and staying away from peanuts and that kind of stuff.
Well, with those too, it's so you're looking at $600 worth of expense to bring in tens of thousands of dollars. That is not an excessive expense. And I can tell you, when I started thinking about this, when I was in the middle of creating all those big camps with Todd at Fitness Quest 10, I was like, well, we couldn't afford, because I wanted to do that, but I was like, well, I couldn't afford doing that. And I never put together that model. So just to hear that, to be like, and now, did you have the kids bring their own snacks and lunches, and then you were just kind of there for backup?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was one of the biggest things is we really didn't want them to rely on us to making those things, especially with allergies and all these and all the things you want to stay away from. So we just put it in the fine not really in the fine details. We put it right there. Bring your own snack, bring your own lunch every day, bring a refillable water bottle, and try to stay away from anything containing nuts as much as possible, so that nobody has any crazy allergic reaction to anything. So putting it on them, and then us having backup graham crackers and fruits and stuff like that. That's not, that wasn't terrible. And it's enough for them if they forget their snack for snack time. It's here's an apple. Like, yeah. So
But we're
it
looking at
wasn't
that.
anything crazy.
As a coach, you look at that and be like, I can manage that. I can buy some bananas and apples every week. And
Absolutely.
that's not a big problem. So when you look at this format, and what would you say would be the advantages? What do you feel after going to a summer? What would the advantage of this to you as someone who needs to make money, for you as someone with the goal of obviously you need to take care of yourself and your business, but with the goal of you want to reach more kids, this goal of truly impacting young lives. What are the advantages of this longer camp format to the 60-minute model?
Yeah. So if you are really feeling called to working with children, or you have somebody in your facility that wants to work with children and impact lives, the hour model works, but you're not going to get as much in-depth connection with the kids. You're not going to create as much connection with the parents during this time. We were sending Google Photos, photo albums of each week to the parents so that they can see what was going on within that time period, in kind of like a 60-minute, 45-minute period, unless you have an assistant that's like by your side with their phone out taking pictures and not really engaged. Like there's not as much opportunity for that kind of extension of your influence into the home. But also, I mean, you just said it, the financial benefits of it too. It's like, what are you going to be doing with your summer, those other 20 hours a week? You're going to be scrolling on Instagram or on TikTok or wondering what's next? No, let's plan something out. Let's get it done. And let's, bring more money for the business, bring more money for you. But I have to say, over 60% of the kids that came into the Rock Solid Kids summer camp experience were new faces that I've never seen before. So we clearly made some sort of impact through our Facebook marketing, our word of mouth. I was able to connect with 38 or so other kids that I'd never met before that are going to start moving into working out in our program. And, I'm a gamer, so I got a couple of them added on Xbox. So now I get to play Xbox, simple. I don't know if you guys play games, but like things like that. I'm able to connect with them outside of just that kind of like gym arena. And then at the end of each week, we took photos and I got them printed of like all the campers together, and I gave it to them. And it's like, now it's a framed photo that they get to look back on when they're younger, like your school pictures. It's like, it's cool. And then they'll remember crazy Coach Brian and crazy Coach Shannon. And so just really being able to impact the kids that I don't get the impact now through the fitness program, but through the summer camp experience.
Well, you talked a couple things you said there. For one, you said that financially, let's think about this, folks. I mean, you got kids come in for an hour here or there and they pay X amount, or you have kids that are literally coming in for 20 hours a week. And the parents, the value of what you're offering there, it's childcare top of everything. So the value that you're able to charge, you can charge more. And you've created a service for the parents. And Brian, you talked about you getting about 60% of the kids are new faces. And you said, oh, your Facebook advertising. Well, honestly, kind of like we had talked about before, what that was is all of a sudden there was a service that they saw. They're like, okay, the hour-long thing. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't got time for that. Oh, shoot. I mean, it's essentially like childcare. And so many coaches are out there like, I'm not childcare. That's totally fine if you're not comfortable with that. But I still want to push you. If you're saying I'm not going to do any sort of thing that's longer than an hour, then what can you do different? How can you find ways to stick out in your community? How can you make that hour have a different value proposition to your community? How can you make that hour deepen the impact that you have in these child's life? How can you make that hour more profitable? So this isn't saying, hey, now you got to open up your doors. That's the only way to do it. It's just, this is another idea. If you're looking for ways to do it, and you heard what they did, they didn't sit there and or sitting around in a circle and play duck, duck, goose all day. They got to train for a lot of the time during that. It's just, they split it up really smart. So there could be, and Brian, you haven't done this yet, and we've talked about it. I'm telling you folks, when school goes in, why do they leave our programs? Because, school started and sports started. They leave because we're an obstacle to that. But what if, just saying, what if your program could be an opportunity? Your program could be, what parents, what are you looking for during the school year? Are they going to say, well, during the school year, the most important thing to me is that they develop proper squat mechanics? No, they're like, I need freaking childcare after school. Like that's
Yep.
what I need. And so if we can be like, well, we can go into, think about if you had kids, my daughter's involved in the program like this, and that's what opened my eyes to it. If they trained 5 days a week under your care, under your guidance, and they did that all year, what type of young athletes, or just what could we do for kids physically? And that's not even say physically, Brian, with what you did, the mindset piece and being able to do these things. And yes, this is a very front heavy business proposition. However, I honestly think there's the capability of this becoming something that makes our business more valuable to our communities, makes our impact deepen. All of a sudden we got kids that are doing 5 days a week with us. We can get involved in nonprofits. So we can get into different areas of our community that really need it. I think there's a lot of opportunity here, folks. So that's why I wanted Brian to share this, and it's exciting to see this. So Brian, if someone is here and they're inspired, they're like, whoa, this is a good idea. I don't know, no one's ever done this in my community. What's some advice that you would share just out of the gate? Say, hey, here's my top 1 or 2 or 3 things that you got to do to give yourself the greatest opportunity for success.
Yeah. So I said it at the beginning, touched on it a little bit, but there's 2 things that I can really think of that really led to the success of this. At the beginning, before we even got to talk about this, was my connection with my community of parents, and listening to, and not being afraid to ask. We have such a good relationship that it's like, I could ask them to walk my dog and they'll be like, yeah, sure, I could do it Friday at 12, So
Brian, I don't want to interrupt that thought, but you just said your connection with your parents. And I know that that's one of your systems. Can you share that system real quick? Because that, honestly, folks, you want to grow your program, it's right here. You can talk about your Facebook advertising and stuff, and that's going to be great. And then your community. But if you really want to see sustained growth, listen to this right here. So
so it's going to sound a little crazy to those people that kind of just want it to be easy and, make money and do this every week. At the beginning of each child coming into just being a submission into our Kajabi, they get a personal video from me. They get a personal connection through me. They come in, they work out, they do all these things. We give them their bands and their leveling system stuff. But every week, every parent on my list gets a personal text from me. They get some of my attention, 10, 20, 30 minutes out of the week that is specifically for them. Now, why that's a lot of work is because if you have 30 parents, 40 parents, 50, 60 parents, that connection gets a little more time consuming. But Brett's special 5 C's and like that calendar of the week and scheduler that we do is pretty darn incredible. But you have to specifically set apart time for your connection with your community. Now, on top of that, not being afraid to ask questions for them. Now that you've built that relationship in the doors, outside the doors, for their kids, impacted their kids' lives, sent their kid a book off of Amazon, whatever it might be, you've touched their lives some way to build that deep-rooted relationship that when I text Sally, and I say, hey, what might we be missing in our program? What might Riley need more of? What is the missing link in your child's life right now? And not being afraid to ask those questions, because they're not going to say, oh, well, RSK doesn't do a great job at doing this and that, because you're an incredible coach. You've connected with them. They would have already told you these things. You've built the relationship. So just being intentional and coming out and saying, that's how we got the idea of the summer camp, is because I set out 2 1-hour meetings with one of my parents because she said, I don't want to send my kid for 6 weeks at this summer camp because she's done it every summer. The teens that work for them aren't as attentive. They see different people every day. So I listened to her outcry, like I said at the beginning, and that's what let me come to Brett and be like, hey, my parent has this issue. Should we create a summer camp that's longer term? Brett said, yeah, because nobody does that and somebody needs it.
Yeah. Well, with Brian, that too, and what Brian is really saying is, and you set apart 20, 30 minutes in your week to just send these texts to parents. It's in your schedule. It's 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And it's not just a group text. Hey, kid did great. Don't forget, sign up for next camp. It's just I call it that 4-sentence conversation, just a very concise. You got to keep it concise because you really only got 20, 30 minutes in your week, but it's personal. And so you get a relationship. So then when you do need to promote something, or you straight up need more numbers, you have a relationship with these parents. So now you can just say, hey, by the way, we really want to help impact, kids in the community. Bring a friend. And they're like, oh, I talk to Brian every week. So yeah, this isn't just, instead of nothing. Did you sign up? We got another camp. Did you sign up? And that's just obnoxious. Or nothing. And then a questionnaire sent to them out of nowhere. You're not going to get anything. But when you have a dialogue, it's worth 20 to 30 minutes out of your week to just set that aside to be like, I'm going to, contact in some way. What's your best way to contact? It could be email's not as good. I'll just tell you that people don't read it, but phone calls, texts. If you can go face to face, it's just marking it off your list. Hey, when Timmy's dad dropped him off, I was able to exchange with him for 2 minutes. So that's good for this week. So again, that idea of parent connection. But go ahead.
You hit a good point there too, because it's not always. I remember when I first got into this journey of youth fitness and running the youth fitness program, was like, I thought that I had to email every parent because email was professional and that's the way it should be done. But I'm building relationships through text, and everybody reads their text. Like if they get a text from somebody, they see it, they read it, they're on their phone X hours a day, no matter what. An email, I lose Brett's emails sometimes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Brett, I'm so sorry, dude. Yeah. But also another point to building that relationship is, it's not always your current parents that need that relationship. It's also the parents that, hey, Blake's got football 5 days a week, 4 hours a day for the next 6 weeks. We got to pause his contract. He won't be back for a little while. Well, I've talked to Blake's mom for the past year and had these text messages that, in 2 weeks, when I say, hey, how's Blake doing? She's going to give me a full report. Blake has grown 6 inches. His hair's getting darker. His biceps have shrunk just a little bit. You like the most detailed things too, and it's kind of funny sometimes. But
and then she brings Blake in.
Parents then brings Blake back in 4 weeks, and those people. So we use Monday.com. I don't know if there's other platforms and softwares out there where I keep track of the status of my guests. So if Blake dropped 2 weeks ago for football for the next few while, I set a date and it says, hey, reach out to Blake's mom on August, 11th and, shoot her a text, ask how he's doing. And it's not, like you said, not a group text. It's not like, oh, hey, how's Blake and you guys? No, like, how's Blake's football, summer with football going? Is there anything I can do to serve you guys? Like, is he struggling with anything? And it would be kind of weird to ask all those specific questions if I hadn't built that relationship for the past year with Blake's mom.
Well, and you're highlighting just you're listening, and that's such a skill. And we are so good at talking as strength and conditioning professionals. We are so good at talking. The part we forget about is the actual listening piece, where it's like, okay, wait a minute, I just said a bunch of stuff. What are my athletes saying? What are the parents saying? And so that's for those of you who are just getting started on this, wondering if it's a good idea. Well, first, it sounds like first get that relationship with your parents, and you can hear the stuff that Brian's doing. It's a lot of work. Well, operating a business is a lot of work, because if working with kids is just sort of like your hobby, well, then it's just your hobby, and that hobby is probably going to come to an end when you have constraints to time, money, or energy. But if you really want to make it a way that you are going to double down on making an impact in your community and take care of your own family, you got to operate it like a business. And these little things, but once they take time and energy,
Absolutely.
but once they become a system, they just happen. And your system, and then, from this, Brian, you had all these new kids come in, and because of all your systems and you're talking to their parents, you're doing this, they don't just take off.
Yep.
At the end. It's like, okay, if we get 60 kids, we're going to keep most of them.
Yeah. And what was cool was at the beginning, the first 3 days of the summer camp, obviously we were kind of like, it was the first 3 days of running a 4-hour-long summer camp throughout the day. We were still a little bit in the weeds, and like we were still working some kinks out, and we were still doing these things. But we had parents coming to us at the end of the day on the third day of the camp saying, well, when the camp ends, what do we do?
Yeah.
Because they need to be here. And we were just giving such a great experience throughout the camp because we were prepared, we planned, we were ready, we had details, and they expected more afterwards. So it was like, yeah.
Well, Brian, kudos to you for taking the risk, really, taking the risk of something new, finding success, and being willing to share it with others. And one of the things that Brian's done, is I always say this, is get off your island. Brian has I'm not the only person that you bounce ideas off of. I mean, you use your network of mentors, and I want to encourage everybody here and if you don't have a network of mentors, start to develop one. If you want to contact Brian, you got questions about his camp, contact me, and I'll get you in contact with Brian. If you're looking for someone to help you grow your programs, Brian and I have talked about our relationship. Brian's one of the coaches that I coach through our Spider Fit Grow Together program. Contact me, respond to this email to say, hey, Brent, I need some help. Get off the island, get yourself a support system so you can actually grow your business, because growing your business means you have more positive influence with the kids in your community. So thank you so much for joining us today, Brian, and everybody else out there. This is just another way we can contribute to that future of happy, healthy, active young athletes. So thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you soon.